Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Can You Spot the Hazard? I'm Tim Diggs, and in today's webinar we're going to test your knowledge on spotting hazards and then give you solutions to help you improve to ensure you're not missing any hazards you need to identify. So stay tuned with us. So joining today is my friend Emily Pritt. Hi Emily, how you doing?
Hey buddy.
Hey, thanks for being with us, Emily. We're going to work with you on spotting hazards today. And before we get into that, I've got on my screen here a visual, and it's important that we understand what exactly we are looking for. So when you're talking about spotting a hazard, you're talking about any source of energy, any bad thing that you're trying to prevent from coming in contact with a target. So common targets are our people, our equipment, our environment, anything that we're wanting to protect that hazardous thing, that source of energy from coming in contact with. So anything bad. So now if we're not good at spotting hazards, it's not a question of if an incident's going to happen, if something bad's going to happen, it's a matter of when. So that's why it's important that we are good at recognizing and spotting and finding the hazards that we come in contact with every day, whether it's at our workplace or even personally. So, Emily, you're going to be our guinea pig today. I'm sure the people watching are going to play along with you. But what we're going to do is we're going to start out and show a series of pictures, real easy for you. You just have to tell us the hazard. And for those of you watching, see if you can beat Emily to the punch. Are you ready, Emily?
All right.
All right, so here we go. So, what's the hazard here, Emily?
Water.
Water. Check out that hill, too.
Yeah, it's a pretty steep hill.
And what's this young legend thinking about doing here? See that?
I'm going to say he wants to go skateboard down that big hill and across and right into the water.
Absolutely. So a lot of potential dangers here, especially with the skateboard underfoot there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good one. All right, what about here?
Oh, this is so out of my area of expertise, but I do see some metal pieces, like wrenches, that are stuck in there. I don't think those are supposed to be there. It's not covered, so it's exposed, whatever that is.
Yeah.
There's different colors of the wires. Some stuff looks like it's not properly sealed.
Sure.
This is not my deal. So.
This one hurts because, we're from Appalachia, and every time I see a picture like this, I think of our people, right? Little ingenuity. But yeah, you're absolutely right. This is an electrical box. And what has happened here is the electric company has pulled the meter, ending service for the electricity, and someone has come up with their own workaround and jammed the wrenches in there so that they can steal some electric power.
Okay.
Certainly some big time electrical hazard there. That's not safe at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, next one.
Okay, no shoes. I mean, I first saw the bag on the head, but then I see no shoes. Is that what is that, a drill?
It's a grinder.
Okay.
Oh, oops.
Okay, so the bag on the face, I guess that's so he doesn't get debris in his eyes, but he's also covering his mouth.
Yeah, he's going to suffocate.
Not wearing shoes. I don't know if you would have some kind of special gloves for grinding or, and then like what's with the pipe, there's a lot
more
happening.
Saran wrap on the pipe there.
There's a lot happening here.
There is a lot happening.
Yeah, a lot of hazards. I feel like I'm probably missing something else.
I think you found them all. I actually didn't realize he wasn't wearing shoes until you said that. But yeah, definitely, with the grinder, everyone's seen those grinders run. Mm-hmm. You've got the sparks flying out. You got it looks like it could be an air-driven or possibly an electric grinder. So, but the hazards there, not as obvious as the lacks of protection. Mm-hmm. But you bring up a great point, and often in the real world is people start overlooking hazards and looking at the mitigations of them. Mm-hmm. But it's important you identify the hazards first. And I think just given the picture, you did a pretty good job there. And then finally, my favorite.
There's a lot happening here. Okay. Is it the lady on the stretcher or the kid with the environmental hazard right there with the squirrel?
Yeah.
But she's smoking. I'm sure there's something combustible.
Maybe live oxygen right
Yeah,
there on the tank. Yeah.
And
And also, too, potentially look in the very, very background, looks like a vehicle coming down the road, so even another hazard. Possibility, if that vehicle's in motion, I mean, a threat of it veering off the road, and we're already, looks like we're off to a pretty bad day right here.
and somebody's been chopping some trees back there, too, so
Yeah.
maybe it was her.
So you're absolutely right, though. There is a lot going on in this picture, and when you first look at it, it's funny, right? You think, only my hometown could have, but hazards can hide on you. Sometimes people can spot most or some of the hazards, but not all of them. So that's another common problem people face, in the industrial world, workplace, and things like that.
I feel like I did a good job,
You have done a great job.
but those are so blaringly obvious. And so almost comical. And I wonder about like you said, the things every day that maybe might be harder to identify, or we become desensitized to, we don't see.
That's perfect lead in. Let's look at one more. But you're exactly right. What about when they're not so obvious? So there is a hazard in this photo. And Emily, if you see it already, don't answer yet. Let's give the people watching time. But do you see the hazard here?
I'm looking, I'm sure it's blending in somewhere, like a snake or a coyote or something. I don't see anything yet.
Okay, let me help you guys out. Okay, so I'll help you out. Maybe if you concentrate inside that red box.
Can I close my It must be really camouflaged.
Let me help a little bit more.
It's kind of grainy, but I see some. So is it a leopard or a cheetah or something? Yeah.
So speaking of spotting the hazard, the spots on the leopard. There you go. And that's a great lead into what you just said. Not all hazards are as obvious or as in front to you or as easy to spot. So to combat that exact thing that you pointed out, there is a tool that people can utilize. Now, Emily, if you're looking here and your role was to go out to this construction site and identify all the hazards to ensure our workers were safe, I'm sure looking at this picture, first off, it's a little bit overwhelming, right?
I'm just trying to look at the buildings to say, do I know this location? It is overwhelming. There's a lot of different colors. There's a lot of stuff happening all at once.
So just some things that might jump out at you, just a couple. What's some hazards you see just right off the bat here?
Well, first thing, I'm looking at this fencing over here, seeing if there's something happening there. I guess my eye is drawn there first. There's a drill thing. I don't know what you call that.
Yeah, so we got some cranes, right? So we got some stuff overhead we got to be watching out for.
So there's people out there. I see that too. There's a guy with I don't know. I did not watch like Bob the Builder. So but the one guy, I guess he's moving the train.
Over here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so they can't see each other because they're like the top of a head of a guy and the bigger thing. There's like no clear indication of like traffic. I see like dirt roads, but like this guy in the truck in the center, the yellow, it almost looks like he's just coming straight for him. So I don't see any like directional information. I don't see signs of like areas to be extra protective in or like keep out. I mean, they've got the fencing, but nothing's really cordoned off.
So that's perfect example. So things you're picking out there are types of hazards that we call gravity and motion. Okay, so the trucks, the vehicles, the big
dirt,
drill,
they're moving
overhead,
dirt, earth,
things like that. Gravity and motion type hazards. Okay, so when we think about how do we spot hazards, what do people utilize to spot hazards? Some of the techniques out there is just generally like you were doing, go out and take a look. Or maybe as you're finding those hazards, they list them on a form. Maybe you do it in a group. Hey, this is what I saw. What did you see? And so on. And a thing about that is you have to ask yourself, is my method a systematic approach? And also think about, what types of cues have we given the people that do these hazard assessments and these HazWalks? What kind of guidance have we given them, things to look for? So this is the energy wheel, and Dr. Matthew Hallowell, we credit him with the energy wheel. He has done a lot of work with this and did some studies, and gravity and motion, those two types of hazards, generally those are the easiest for people to spot. In a study, around, I believe it was 70 to 80% of the gravity and motion hazards were recognized. And the reason for that is that gravity and motion type hazards, identifying those, take very little cognitive process. Something right up your alley with the work you do for us. But as you move around the energy wheel, things that are listed here, gravity and motion are intuitive type hazards. And you see here listed on the energy wheel, mechanical, electrical, pressure, and so on. As you move around these different categories of the energy wheel, in all of those hazardous studies that Dr. Hallowell has quoted and worked with and things, they had diminishing returns, or people were less likely to identify a temperature hazard than a mechanical hazard or gravity and motion. So as you move around the wheel, those types of hazards become harder and harder to spot. They rely more on a cognitive process of us, having to think about it and so on.
That makes sense. Yes, like temperature. I know, like in food safety, you have to be in a safe zone. Once the temperature goes beneath a certain level, like food can spoil, then that brings in a lot of foodborne illness and things like that. But unless you have a thermometer, unless you're on the line and you know to check for that, if you had a plate of food delivered to you, you're not going to know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're exactly right.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
So gravity and motion, and then you move around how you would utilize the energy wheel. Emily, if you think back to that work site that we just looked at, the construction zone, how you could utilize this energy wheel proactively is on your hazardous walks. Start with the gravity and motion hazards, identify all of those, and then move to the next phase, in this case mechanical, identify all those hazards, and then electrical, pressure, sound, radiation, and so on.
Okay,
and
so
keep
now
working around that energy wheel.
That makes sense now, looking at it in a construction site versus a restaurant. That temperature hazard is going to look different because we're looking for cold sickness, heat-related illness, things like that, and then the signs that there might be an issue there.
Absolutely right.
Okay.
You're exactly right. Some examples of things, gravity and motion now. In a industrial setting, we're going to be looking for those lethal type hazards. So here's some examples of those different types of lethal type hazards. So gravity, suspended loads, falls above 4 feet, motions, things that are moving at speeds greater than 30 miles per hour and so on. Mechanical, some of the obvious that in that picture, the rotating, you pointed it out, the drill, the rotating equipment, or unguarded pinch points, but also people overlook like lines under tension, taut lines. That's an example of mechanical hazard.
Okay.
Electrical, so voltages above 50 volts, arc flashes. In your pressure, you're looking at the explosion capabilities, cave-ins. You mentioned there's stacked dirt around in here. Things like that.
So back to the fellow who didn't have shoes on and he's grinding. I mean, that's an electrical hazard, not just the sparks, but there's other things like what is the volt? Is he even using the proper
right, exactly
source
right.
of power? And
or you may have a pressure, if that's an air-driven grinder, that goes through the air hose. Now you got a pressure hazard as well. And that's exactly right. So that's what the hazard wheel does for us, is it categorizes these different types of hazards we have out there, and then we can take cues from the hazard wheel to ensure we're not overlooking or not identifying any of those hazards, to ensure we're not missing any and not opening us up to having an incident, not a matter of if, but when. Yeah. So if we go back to the construction site, now you got to be careful here. You don't want to try to eat the apple in all one bite. Okay, so even with the energy wheel, and now we've got our cues so we don't overlook anything, you still need to take a systematic approach to this. So something like I would recommend, if this is your site that you have to identify all the hazards, is start breaking stuff off into quadrants. You know, attack what you can attack in a reasonable size. But after you draw out what your quadrants are, then using the energy wheel is going to be very simple to spot those hazards you have.
You just run through the wheel counterclockwise.
Run through the wheel counterclockwise. Okay. Absolutely right. Now, so that is a really valuable tool that you can arm your workers with. Think about if you are in construction or, well, really any type of industry has different types of hazards they got to work with. And a lot of people who are in charge of identifying these, excuse me, I get all choked up talking about hazard identification. You know, what type of training have they had? What kind of cues have they been given? A lot of times, like we said, it's talking to other people. It's based on past experience, things like that. But the hazard wheel really gets us outside that box, like the root cause tree and corrective action helper, and gets us thinking about things that, like you said, aren't the obvious stuff. So controlling the hazards, here's the key. This is how you can better spot hazards, is by utilizing that energy wheel that Dr. Matthew Hallowell had worked on. But there's an important next step to that, which I think we'll have that coming up in phase 2 of this webinar series. But it's, what are we going to do about it? Once we've done a good job of finding all these hazards and we're sure we got them listed, now what? And to give you a sample of that is, you know, talking about safeguards and defense in depth. So how we're going to control that energy that we have found. And do we have controls in the process that are strong enough, or do we need to add more? So that is an explanation on spotting hazards. And also, you know, as you're doing this, there's some different ways to record what you find. Lists are popular, where people actually list out those different hazards they have identified and what controls they have in place. Here's another example. I kind of like this, something where it's already prepared, and the whomever is working on identifying the hazards, it's somewhat of a very similar to the hazard wheel, where it's reminding them to look for these things. Do we have them?
Okay.
But the problem with this one is people can become a little bit complacent when they have checklists.
Just trying to check the checks.
They're checking for the sake of checking. Absolutely right. But it does serve as a reminder. So what I recommend to people as far as recording hazards you have identified is a little bit of a combination of both of those examples. Some checklists for reminding, but also incorporating that hazard wheel and leaving a space for them to, write out more detail what they are seeing, what they are identifying. I think that's the best way for recording that, is a combination of all three of those things that we've shown. So that is our webinar on spotting the hazards. I know Emily is well more prepared now. She's going to go out with her hazard wheel or energy wheel and be able to spot those hazards, and I hope you are too. And we look forward to you joining us on our next session when we talk about what we do once we have found those hazards. Have a great day, and we hope to see you again.